What's up, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of the Corridor Cast. I'm here with Addy Shankar, who has joined me multiple times in the past. We've talked about the world for creators, the world of art, the world of film, personal endeavors, so many
sketchy
things.
behavior, just
Sketchy
general
behavior.
sketchy behavior and how we can leverage it to improve.
Yeah.
To improve.
But you're like, so if I were to sum up like my vision of you for as an industry member, like not as like a personal friend, but just like as a guy in the industry, I'd sum you up as like the one guy, if not, yeah, the one guy who kind of understands how to turn video games into narratives and to do so in a way that's fun and effective and like pleasant to watch. And you're like, oh, this is the game that I love, among other things. And you kind of like, I remember you kicked that off back in the day with the bootleg universe, which is kind of this foray into it. Like you explained it before in the show, but like, what would you describe the bootleg universe as? Like, why are you compelled to pursue this thing?
Like, why did I do that?
Yeah. Why did you start the bootleg universe, and why have you stuck with it for so many years? What is it about it?
Well,
that,
it was subversive subversive, but it was subversive takes on just the things I loved. Right?
Mhm.
I wanted because I'm selfish, Nico. That's why. I'm really fucking selfish. I can't love something without going into it, grabbing it, and manipulating it some way.
Right.
And that's what it was.
Okay.
I
mean, that's basically what we were doing on our YouTube channel too. It's like, I like Halo. I want to do an action scene in Halo, and I'm not going to let anybody tell me no.
Totally. And this is why we became friends.
Yeah.
I'm like, oh, they're doing what I'm doing. This is great. Like, we should hang out. Yeah. And I guess Captain Laserhawk is now another evolution of that. And I wouldn't say it's necessarily just what you said. I don't think it necessarily just applies to games. It's cartoons, it's anime, it's
right. It's like
it's
all the culture that we kind of grew up with.
It's the culture we grew up with.
Yeah. And so you just dropped a Netflix series, which is Captain Laserhawk, based on Far Cry Blood Dragon, which is
inspired by.
You're right. Not based on. It's a very deep cut of an Ubisoft like franchise, but the series itself is, I mean, it's hard to describe. It's like the multiverse of Ubisoft.
Did you like it?
I did. I could see a lot of your influence in it. Plus the fact that you're also one of the characters, which was a fun little surprise.
And I also look like the
the
other.
Dude.
I look like the main, which is hilarious.
Yeah, I didn't know you could do voice acting. It was actually really solid.
Well, I'm voice acting as an American right now, so.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
What do you have can you drop the veil?
Dude, I do so many different accents. So we've talked about this before, right? So I was born in India,
Mm-hmm.
In Calcutta. Then we moved to Madras, which is South India, Mumbai, which is also India, but elsewhere. Now, these are different regions that have different dialects, different accents, different cultures.
Mm-hmm.
Then we moved to Hong Kong, which was a British colony at the time, right? So I'm going to, so I literally adopted a British accent to fit it.
When did you move to Hong Kong? How old were you?
5.
Okay.
So all these places, Mumbai, Chennai, Calcutta, had the local accent. Then we moved to Hong Kong, and I had a British accent.
Huh.
I put it on because I'm like, okay, this is how people talk. So.
Did your parents speak English to you while you were growing up, or were you speaking? What language did you start with as a kid?
Hindi.
Yeah.
Hindi. And so actually my mom is a Hindi speaker, and that's Calcutta. That's that part of India. But when you go to South India, Chennai, that's where my father's from. It's a different language. It's Tamil. So my dad speaks Tamil. Right? So I learned a little bit of Tamil when I was very little. So everywhere I was going, I was completely morphing my voice to like Mystique from the fucking X-Men fit in to the local culture, right? And then I ended up going to a German Swiss school in Hong Kong, and I adopt that accent. So
have you obtained like a neutral accent, like one that's like culmination of all of them brought together?
No. Well, again, it's so like wildly disparate. And I feel like part of you is begging me to like start using different accents.
No.
But
you don't have to start doing impressions.
But no. Because again, different accents, they use different parts of the voice, right?
Mhm.
I actually find it harder to communicate with the American accent.
Do you think with an accent? Like the voice in your head, does it have
Yes,
any
that's
accent?
a great question. It depends on what I've been using and what I'm thinking about, right?
Mhm.
I'll give you an example, which is interesting. Something that just recently happened to me. Last week, I was doing a TV interview for India,
Mhm.
um, and I was talking in my American accent, and then I said, "Look, can I just talk to you in my Indian accent?" They're like, "Please."
Hmm.
I dropped it, go into my Indian accent, and the texture of the conversation completely shifted. It became different, and I was communicating. It was like a different side part of myself
Hmm.
emerged, if that makes sense. So
Yeah.
it's like in a weird way, it's almost like multiple personalities. But again, that's too extreme. I don't want to say that, but it's almost like that, where when you use a different accent, a different part of yourself emerges, not too dissimilar from like different clothes, right? Like if you
Mhm.
wear
Yeah.
a bandana, like the times you wear a bandana and a feather boa, like that's a different
It's a
Nico that
different Nico,
emerges
one that they
than
don't see on YouTube very
right,
often.
than the cigar smoking leather jacket.
Yeah. Which is the one that my children see.
Right, totally.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, with the Harley. Yeah.
Yeah, man. I mean, language is one of those things too, where it's like, it's not just the words, it's the rhythms, it's the intonations and all those things, the musicality to it. And like different languages just express, like you think differently when you have different languages running in your mind.
Totally.
Yeah.
Totally.
You read the book Snow Crash, right?
Of course.
Yeah. I love that concept that you can program brains through language, and how they learn to speak, it like dictates how fast they can calculate.
Mhm.
I mean, it's super sci-fi, like, and out there, but like it's a great premise for a book.
Mhm.
Yeah. Okay, so back to Laserhawk.
Captain
Captain
Laserhawk, a Blood
Laserhawk.
Dragon remix. You should all watch it.
Yes, it's on Netflix right now. Um, so you have the Castlevania series that you worked on, and you have Laserhawk, and looking at Netflix, there's other, like there's a cyberpunk anime that's out as well. Do you feel like animation is where like video game stories are going to live, as opposed to like Last of Us HBO style things or movies? Is animation now the realm?
So I don't feel like there's any one thing that is like necessarily the realm,
Mhm.
just like I don't feel like there's any one thing that is quote the right way to do something.
Mhm.
I feel like it's all going to exist. It can all be done well, with the caveat that there's too much content that's been made. There's too few people watching that content, and the content that is being watched is getting most of the eyeballs, right?
Yeah.
And now we have strikes. We have an economic meltdown that's happening across gaming, film, TV, streaming, theatrical, all of it.
Mhm.
There's a fucking meltdown happening, right? I've had after Laserhawk has happened, came out, when you have a project come out, your agent gets like incoming calls.
Mhm.
People want to meet you. Okay, that's pretty normal. So fine, we set up all these meetings. Okay, Addy will meet this guy and that guy and that guy. And then like 2 days before multiple meetings, they're like, okay, we actually can't do this meeting anymore. Everyone's been fired.
Oh, wow.
And I'm talking, these are like heads of companies. It's not, yeah, these are like
Mhm.
the president of the
Yeah.
company, or a company with an overall deal where they're like, okay, now the deal has been pulled.
Hmm. So the whole, like, I guess, yeah.
So the whole apparatus is not crumbling, but it is going through an evolution.
It was, well,
And because of that evolution, what gets made going forward may be different.
you had an interesting
Will
where you
be
said that
different.
like so there's a lot of content, not enough eyeballs, and the eyeballs that are there are disproportionately watching like one thing.
Yes.
Why is that? Is that just human nature? Do we just need one thing that we can kind of unite under, or is it just how content's being served to people because it's algorithmic?
Oof. I don't think it's any one thing,
Yeah.
but I would point to a few things. One, quality control. Um, has been a moving target. Right? There's been a lot of spending, and there was an arms race. There was an arms race to build content libraries.
Right, and the spending wasn't necessarily like, oh, what's the good idea that needs the money? It's more like, what's the idea that's going to pull
They were
the
all
audience?
good ideas.
Right, they're all being made by.
They're all good
professionals at the
ideas.
top
They're
of
all
their-
good ideas. You know, I realized this a few years ago. I'm like, oh, it's no longer. It used to be impossible to get something made and greenlit. So when we both started out in this business, it was fucking impossible. If you got something made, it was like crazy. Then it also all of a sudden became a different context where it wasn't like easy. I'm not going to say it was easy, but things were being just greenlit. Just cause things were just being greenlit, right?
Business was happening.
Business was happening. Money was flowing. Deals were
dealing.
Wheelers were dealing and dealers were being wheeled. Whatever the fuck that means. But yeah, that is over. That is just fucking over. Because you know, again, we said quality control. I would point also to the fact that when we had fewer distribution channels, you know, you had the three major networks, and you have a global audience, but I'm just going to focus this on America, just cause. So you had NBC, ABC, CBS that made stuff, and then you had that made like, how would you describe their content?
NBC, ABC, and CBS. It was the classic sitcom comedy. It's like, how can we make a show with like charming characters that's like almost entirely writing, takes place in a dang living room, and how can we like just make it so charming and fun that like
they also had like cop shows and procedure. You know, they had cop shows, doctor shows, formulaic.
But yeah, find a format that you can reproduce every week that millions of people will want to watch.
Law and Order.
Yeah, CSI, ER, but I feel like little by little that they had to keep turning the quality up, you know, until you're effectively having to produce mini movies every week for your thing.
Right.
But still, it's like those are the channels and that was it.
But they kind of knew they were programming for an audience. Now, my perception at the time when we were first breaking in was like, oh, they felt like gatekeepers. But now I'm kind of re-examining that belief structure.
Like, they were definitely gatekeepers.
They were gatekeepers for sure.
But were they also perhaps like arbiters of quality?
Maybe not even quality is the right word here, but they knew what the audience wanted and they were programming for the audience.
Right.
And they were also programming for commercials.
Well, you had that time slot competition.
Right.
Where it's like, it's 9:00 on a Thursday night. Everybody's in their house. Whatever we put on TV needs to be the best thing on TV. Otherwise, they're going to watch this thing instead. You don't really have that now. Where it's like, oh, this show is literally fighting this show.
Right. You don't have that. So it's all gone, right?
Yeah.
So, which brings me to another point on all of this. If Sylvester Stallone releases a movie today on streaming in theaters, he's competing against, or that movie is competing against every Stallone movie that's ever been produced. It's competing with every Schwarzenegger movie that's ever been produced.
Right.
It's competing with every action movie in America, from Korea, from India, right?
It's not just competing with what's being broadcast on ABC at that
day.
Yeah. Yeah, it's intense.
So there's a fragmentation in just the viewership in general.
There's too much content. Which is, I feel like, is one of the reasons maybe the strike took so long to sort out. Is it's like we already have so much content. It's like there's not a rush to start making more content.
Again, I don't think it was. I don't know.
It's not one thing. I don't
feel like it's one thing. I feel like we've got, you know, you also have these like, trying to find someone to blame here. It's the management consultants. It's like McKinsey and Company, Bain and Company. Do you know a lot about these people? I don't want to do a deep dive, but effectively they've been kind of like the architects. I would argue they've been like the architects of a lot of the chaos that's happened in in America and in the world, because their whole business model is fuck. We shouldn't talk about this. This is
Is
just
this like algorithmic thought manipulation kind of stuff?
kind of. But look,
Yeah.
their whole thing is, Shell will hire McKinsey and be like, well, what do we do? And then Bank of America will hire McKinsey and be like, what do we do? And they're telling everyone what to do because they're consultants. They get paid to consult, and they're giving everyone the same advice, which is downsize, scale, like, scale at all costs, right? So we've basically been in this world where, how do I even say this? It's like Wall Street and then the companies that are being financed by Wall Street are being forced to have astronomical profits or astronomical or to prove that they have astronomical valuations. And that is unsustainable.
Yeah.
And that system is what's crashing. And that's not a Hollywood thing. It's not a strike thing. It's affecting gaming. It's affecting the whole world.
From specifically an entertainment slice of things, I feel like
did that make any sense, or did I sound like
it made sense?
Fucking nuts.
It made sense. I mean, I would love to deep dive into it.
That's the thing. I can deep dive into the fucking nuance of that and what that is, right? But that was just kind of like the elevator pitch.
Yeah, we can leave that as like that's the appetizer to the conversation.
But if you want to find out more, if someone's listening to this and wants to find out more, just Google McKinsey and Company. It's called McKinsey and Company. Just Google them.
AOL keyword McKinsey and Company.
Yeah, and do a deep dive, and there's the propaganda version of what they do, and then there's the reality of what they do, and it's dark.
Well, the thing that I've observed, and it's like, so we have a bunch of like tech companies in entertainment now, and like entertainment is a thing where it's always felt like a huge aspect of the economy. Like how like this Marvel film made how many millions of dollars? Avatar made $1 billion, and like we talk about money, we talk about how much movies cost, but while they have this huge cultural impact, as far as like the actual money being generated compared to like other sectors of the economy, it's not a big chunk. And I feel like tech companies are discovering that right now as they, as Netflix tries to become a huge company based off entirely just entertainment.
Yeah.
I could be way off base. What do you think?
I mean, again, I feel like artists have been devalued through all of this. By calling it content. And I'm calling it content because I'm like kind of making fun of it. But
well, how do you
Tarantino is not a content creator. You know what I'm saying?
I need some more Tarantino content for my theater to fill my theater minutes.
It's like
well, that's like the broadcast thinking where it's like you have a time frame. It's like we need to fill these time slots.
I don't feel like it's broadcast as much as it because broadcast did a great job of eventizing their broadcast, right? They created the Super Bowl.
Right.
They literally created the Super Bowl. They turned it into a thing. So I don't know if that's broadcast thinking, although I would argue that the TV people have taken over the entertainment apparatus and the film people have been demoted, maybe. Because at the end of the day, what is the MCU? It is a massive TV show.
Right.
Where it's
like, what's the point of making one 90-minute episode of TV when you can make 10 90-minute episodes of TV?
Exactly.
Yeah.
And release them in theaters.
Yeah.
People follow around. Okay. So what was your question?
I don't know. We were just going. Let's keep going.
No, you asked a great question though, and I feel like I did the thing where you asked a great question. You said,
man, I don't know. I mean, I like this talking like what's happening with the industry, and I was talking about I don't know if this was the question, but I was talking about like the size of entertainment and our perception of it as being part of like business and the economy.
Well, sure,
is like the reality.
Sure. So I don't. Again, I think Netflix is great. I will go out and say I think Netflix is great. Netflix has been great, and Netflix has been great to me. So I'm kind of removing them from the conversation because we're talking about tech. So let's just talk about a tech ethos.
Yeah. Like
And
the subscription platform apps,
all
like,
of it,
yeah.
right? So,
Or even like the Apple and Amazon side.
okay, let's talk about Apple.
Yeah.
Who made the iPhone?
Not Steve Jobs, but
You
Steve
have
Jobs
no
and his team
fucking
and Johnny
idea.
Ive.
You have
Yeah.
no fucking idea. Who came up with the Vision Pro? You have no fucking idea.
Apple.
All you know is Apple, right?
Yeah.
So in a way, like this tech ethos feels like we're going to get rid of people. We're going to get rid of superstars.
Mhm.
And at the end of the day, the brand is the star,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
The brand is the star. It doesn't matter who made the fucking iPad. Apple made the iPad.
I mean, that's Disney, basically.
Right. But you see how that ethos has been co-opted and
Yeah.
adopted by entertainment, because yes, that is Disney, but that wasn't Disney historically.
Right. Yeah, you'd have auteurs.
Because Walt Disney was a fucking dude who was a star. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Apple was not a dude.
Right.
Apple is a fucking Apple.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? It's like a logo.
It's like right now, if you're like, who comes up with the Mickey Mouse stories these days? It's like Disney. It's like, who comes with like, the Marvel series? It's like Disney. Like, yeah.
So I feel like the lack of
broad.
stars or an unwillingness to mint stars
Mm-hmm.
has also hurt the entertainment business and the entire ecosystem, right? Because like and we can expand on that in every fucking direction, but does that make sense?
Yeah.
And are you seeing that trend also?
I mean, I think the one thing you mentioned about like there's too much content and too little eyeballs. You can have too little eyeballs and too much content. Like that can work if the economics are set up where, somebody can survive off 10,000, 20,000, 30,000 eyeballs, which is kind of what we're trying to do with corridordigital.com, where we can have like a small audience that can really support this stuff.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. However, you have not taken money from the venture capitalists.
Have not.
There's not some hedge fund breathing down your neck saying, okay, Nico, listen, you're getting 10,000 views. We need you to get 100 million views every day. So we're going to scale you and go as big as possible. We're going to sink a lot of money into this. And you'll turn to them and be like, dude, there's no way that's going to work or be profitable.
Yeah.
And they'll force you to do it, and then Corridor will be gone. Right?
Yeah.
That is the story for a lot of like tech company or startups.
Yeah.
It's that. It's like
they take on the venture capital and you have a debt that you have to
and then
fund.
you're forced to scale.
Yeah.
You're forced to scale because the management consultants. Sorry.
Yeah. It actually, reminds me of advice I got when I was going to college, which was if you take out college loans, the time after college, you want freedom to try things, like to go be an intern somewhere or work for free for somebody. And if you have to pay off $1,000 a month in a college loan, then the first thing that happens when you get out of college is you go and get a job.
Yeah.
And I feel like that's what happens when you do the venture capitalist thing and you go into debt and you take funding, is like you've immediately taken on that debt. And now the first thing you do once you graduate from college is you have to get a job. You can't experiment, you can't try things, you can't have that freedom.
It's that on steroids, because now you're forced to take on more capital.
Yep.
In order to, because in this, it's not, oh, you have to get a job.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, look, you could get a job, but we don't want you to get a job. We actually want you to get a PhD.
Yeah.
And we'll get you that PhD, but you have to do it our way, this way. And it's going to cost you it's going to cost you all this money, and you have to take it on. And so it's like they're telling you how to navigate your business.
You're trapped, and that's the only way out.
Exactly.
Yeah.
You're in a high-speed fucking car race with a bunch of other cars that don't want to be in that race and are all being forced to. And at the end of the day, there's no finish line. There's a wall, and you're gonna all crash into it. Yeah. Right?
Like there's a big Pac-Man behind you that's coming at you at a certain speed, and you have to keep your foot on the pedal.
And this model got, so what worked for Facebook, long time ago, worked for Amazon. So we all have to.
Yeah.
And it's like, what are you pushing exactly? Like a monopoly? That's what winning looks like. It's a monopoly, right? Because you were asking me earlier, you're like, oh, well, there's Cyberpunk Edge Runners, there's Arcane, Last of Us, right?
Mm-hmm.
And you were like, well, what direction is it going to go? And part two to my answer to that is I don't feel like I'm in competition with anybody.
Mm-hmm.
I don't feel like I need to win. I feel like there's a lot of customers out there. Let's call them customers, audience customers, viewers, enthusiasts, right? Whatever the fucking word is. There's a lot of people out there, fans,
Mm-hmm.
and I feel like they should all be served, right? And if what I'm providing is not what you want, well then okay, there's and it's too dark.
Mm-hmm.
Great, there's the Cuphead show, right? Which
Mm-hmm.
is not dark. There's different options, and I feel like more options is good for people, for the consumer, the audience. Um, yeah.
Yeah.
So like this mindset of like having to win and having to be like and defining winning as everybody else losing. That is some fucked up shit.
Mm-hmm.
And that is the tech ethos.
Mm-hmm.
Right? It's we're gonna gobble everyone up, and there will only be one logo, and it'll be an apple. And no one will know anything behind this or anyone behind this Apple logo because no one there matters.
Mm-hmm. It's just a brand.
It's just
An
a
immortal
brand, and everyone will obey the brand.
Speaking of immortal brands, to what extent, like, to what extent do you think a company should own an idea? Like, an artist writes a story. A publisher pays them for the rights. Now the
Sure.
publisher owns the story. If for a couple of years, 10 years, 20 years, is there a point where, like, if your nephew has a birthday cake with that character on it, at what should that character be part of culture and belong to everybody? Where do you see that transition?
So part of me wants to just literally say I am the wrong guy to I'm the wrong guy to even talk about this. But I'm saying that because I've had like wildly divergent opinions on this, right? Like I'm like, copyright's bullshit, it's not real. Dude, I don't know. At the end of the day, I don't know, right? Because I understand the concept of things being available to people.
Mhm.
And like, and at the same time, I also understand the concept of like someone needing to own something to incentivize them to keep doing it,
Right.
right?
Right.
Because it descends into like socialism, like the bad kind of socialism, where it's like, oh, I made a game, okay, great, fuck you. Now the state owns the game, right? You're like, wait, what? So it happened
Yeah.
to the Tetris dude,
Right.
right?
Yeah.
They're like, great, Russia owns this game. We're like, wait, what? No, I just made this game, great.
Well, you work for the Russian people, so
Yeah, exactly. So, man, I just feel like it's got to be a balance. It's just got to be a balance. I don't where that line is. I have no idea. But yeah, what I
should
don't
Luke Skywalker be in the public domain by now? I've made you prime directive of the United States. You can decide whatever you want.
okay. So wait, so I'm not Addy. I'm in charge of the United States.
Yeah, you're still Addy, but you're like supreme ruler.
But I'm Addy, who's supreme ruler of the United States.
Low stakes.
No, then I would seize it. Then I would seize it for the United States. I would pass laws saying that no, this if I'm the ruler of the United States, I'd start seizing all the IP for the United States, for the good of the United States, right?
Okay.
Or well, that's assuming that I'm an evil ruler. Oh man, I don't fucking know, dude. Like,
because like we both started making videos, and there's a sense of like, I like Halo, I'm going to do a short film with Halo, or I like Power Rangers, I'm going to do a short film with Power Rangers. Like, I grew up on these things; they are part of my identity. To a certain point, I have ownership of that. It's like,
yes,
sure, like Bungie, you own Halo, Microsoft, you own Halo, cool, but I also own a little bit of Halo too. Like the Halo that influenced me, and yeah.
And the argument I used to make back in the day when I was like super anti-copyright, and I actually felt like it was this evil empire trying to like fucking impose their will on me. That's legitimately how I felt. the argument I would make is like, okay, I didn't ask to be born. I just showed up.
Mm-hmm.
And I didn't ask for American television to be like fucking beamed to me everywhere in the world. Like this, like, you know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
It just kind of happened to me. You put this image in front of my eyeballs, and it like, it's now like in my subconscious, and now you're telling me no, and you can only engage with it in this way.
Exactly.
Right?
Yeah.
So that was the argument I used to make back in the day. That like, you know, yeah, you own it, but go fuck yourself. Now I've grown up. Look, I feel like there is no right and wrong. There is no good and bad, especially with these kind of things, right? I think we as a society have to make decisions on what to do
Mm-hmm.
and how these things should be navigated. I think where we get into trouble is when one entity or one person or one party or one interest group has way too much power, right? So if Disney can lobby the US government, can force senators to extend copyright law for like thousands of years,
Mm-hmm.
okay, then, right, that's an extreme case.
Right.
And the other extreme is like the Tetris example.
Mm-hmm.
You made Tetris, but you don't own it.
Yeah, and that doesn't feel right either.
That doesn't feel right either. That feels,
yeah.
They both feel like robbery.
Yeah, and it's hard because you can be like, well, okay, so then you get 40 years plus 10 years of this. Like, well, now you're just arbitrarily putting like math and timeframes on it.
Yeah,
like,
it feels like you're punting something down the road.
Yeah.
And the other thing that's like weird about things falling into the public domain is different countries have different public domain laws.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So like,
yeah,
correct me if I'm wrong, but James Bond has fallen into the public domain in Canada.
I think the literary version has. Yeah. Yeah.
And then there's a nuance with the trademark.
Yeah.
There's a nuance with the trademark. Again, if I'd known we were talking about this, I'd have like read up. I kind of shed myself of this conversation psychologically because I'm like, I don't want to become this like IP app because it'll just come and bite me in the ass in the future, right? Because someone will be like, because I'll like make something and then someone will do some weird rip off of it and I'll be really mad and someone will be like, you're a hypocrite. So I'm like, okay, I can see the writing on the wall. That's gonna fucking happen to me one day.
You're just gonna let it happen, man.
I'm just gonna just all right, no. But yeah, there's a thing, you know, with like so Zorro. Like is Zorro in the public domain, like, or Sherlock Holmes, but you know, the family's estate can always come back and contest it and create issues. So
yeah,
you know, again, there's a fucking nuance here, and you're asking me my opinion, and my opinion is I don't have an opinion. But I feel like we should have a collective understanding of what the rules are, and we don't, and that's the problem. We don't.
Yeah, part of that issue is having artist and company kind of treated. There's separate things, but also they're the same things at the same time. Where it's like you have an artist create a concept, but then the company can own the concept. So now the artist no longer owns it; the company owns it, but the person who created it is still.
That's an interesting point. That's a fucking. Thank you for bringing that up, dude. Because that's the other nuance here, right? Because so many laws in America seem to just favor the corporate entities.
Right.
They're designed to protect corporate interests. But in Europe, like in Japan, for instance, the author of the thing has way more control than they do here, right? So when you look at like the guys that Schuster and the guys that created Superman, if they nearly died, you know, they're working as janitors. Like when the Superman movie blew up, they were working as janitors. Like that's not fair either.
Right.
That's not, at that point, put Superman into the fucking public domain, dude.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? That just feels gross.
Yeah.
That feels gross. I'm like, how am I supposed to consume this thing knowing that? And look, you can make the argument that Superman had all these different iterations and what, but still there's just like kind of an unfairness there, you know?
Yeah.
Versus yeah, the creators of the things, at least in, and I can use Japan as an example, they're just treated with so much reverence. That's cool. I think that's cool.
Hmm. All right.
Does that,
Yeah.
do you feel complete there? We can talk about this more. I mean, because
Man,
you're right.
thing is, like, I could go really in on this, but I do have another topic I want to talk about.
Yes.
Two, actually. I'd love to talk about Laserhawk a little bit more.
For sure.
But really, it just leads me to my greater love, which is talking about video game movies and video game TV shows.
Sure.
Because that's effectively what it is. So what's the best, in your opinion? Not the best? What video game based show or movie stands out to you? What are like your top 3 personally?
Video game based
Shows or movies?
Okay. So I'd say Snowpiercer.
That's not based on a game.
No, but the visual language was very much based on
True,
a game.
but I'm talking about actually based on game properties.
Got it. I would say Captain Laserhawk.
Okay, great. Captain Laserhawk, number 1. Castlevania, number 2.
My upcoming Devil May Cry series, actually number 3 or number 1. Really,
Yes.
number 1.
Yeah, number
Devil
1
May Cry
now.
is number 1.
Yep.
It's actually a tie for number 1 with Laserhawk and Devil May Cry.
Okay.
Yeah. All kidding aside, I don't have a, I don't have like a winner.
Yeah.
I feel like it's all great. I genuinely, and I'm not like trying to.
So it's not the original Mortal Kombat film?
Pardon?
It's not the original Mortal Kombat film?
No, I love the original Mortal Kombat film. I love the original Mortal Kombat.
No, that's my number 1, honestly. But
that's going to change. At some point that'll change.
Right.
You'll have, like, did you love the film or did you love the feeling of playing Mortal Kombat and then all of a sudden seeing these characters in live action, right?
I mean, yeah, it's that. But that's what.
But you're a parent now. You're a parent now. One day you're going to share. You're going to be playing, I don't know, Metroid with your child, and then what I'm saying. I don't know what I'm saying.
I mean, yeah, definitely. You need the experience. Like, nobody's going to have the same relationship with the Mortal Kombat movie now that I had with it when I was like 10 years old, right? Because like you need to be having played Mortal Kombat in your SNES secretly without your parents seeing it, and then going to see the movie,
right?
Like for that movie to be what it is.
Or Duke Nukem,
right?
Same thing.
Yeah.
Like you sneak into the basement and you play Duke Nukem, and everyone in school is like, "Oh my god, Duke Nukem's crazy, dude!"
Yeah.
Right? Like,
yeah.
Like that was a experience that you only got in a specific period of time, like in a like. That was like our generation.
Yeah.
And maybe even a little bit older.
And I mean, that's definitely like, yeah. So, for, I think a good video game movie or TV series, like it needs to be paired with that, those universal feelings that people have had playing that game. And if it's, if it's years and years removed, like, if you tried to drop a Duke Nukem movie now, like who cares? Right. You're not working on one, are you? I didn't hear your feelings, did I?
I'm not working on a Duke Nukem.
But it's like that relationship to the game is important. Well, it depends on how you're writing the movie, right? If you're trying to like have it pull from like gameplay experience versus like just characters, like those are different things. But I don't know. I bring this up because I wanted to ask, like, what you've worked with so many franchises now at this point. What franchise, if we're up to you, would you want to tackle?
Here's an actual answer to this question. Your Mario Kart videos.
Yeah.
I loved your Mario Kart videos.
Do you like to see a Mario Kart movie?
No, but I loved your Mario Kart videos.
Oh, as a top list.
Yeah.
Oh, well, thank you.
Like literally most of my top stuff, if I were to actually pick top stuff, would be your stuff.
Oh, well, thanks.
Because it's like
flattering.
Because it's the, you guys were able to alchemize the silliness of games with the seriousness of games. Like, I'm gonna butcher it, so I'm not gonna try to distill why it's fucking cool, but it's just fucking cool, right? Like, you guys were doing it, you were having fun. You weren't trying to make it anything other than how you saw it, and that's cool. It's awesome. I
Huh.
fucking love your stuff.
Thanks.
I fucking love your stuff. I'm like genuinely a fan of the I don't want to call it content, but I'm genuinely a fan of the content you guys have made around games.
Oh, well,
You know, your PUBG short.
oh, I love my
Your
PUBG
PUBG
short.
short's fucking sick.
Thank you.
Yeah, you're there's one that I was gonna just cite, and I'm blanking on the fucking
We've got
name, but
a million of
it's
them.
where like almost like Nerf guns are.
Nerf Team Fortress.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I loved your Portal stuff. In fact, you licensed me, or you gave me license. You fucking just gave me some of the footage from your stuff to use in Guardians of Justice, because I was like, yeah, I need some like, yeah. So yeah,
Okay. Well, so if you could work on anything right now, like what's like a dream video game, or like what's a video game story?
What's my dream that I would do right now?
Yeah.
I would help rebuild Hollywood.
Well,
That's actually my dream.
Okay. Well, before we go into that, like from a video game point of view, like what game like is something that you've always wanted to adapt?
Duke Nukem. Just kidding. Fuck. I don't know, because I'm just so. Here's the truthful answer, and I hope this does not come off as douchey. So it's probably going to come off as douchey. It feels like everything is on the, like, legitimately on the table for me, which is fucking insane. You know what I'm saying, though?
Mm-hmm.
Like, everything is on the table for me.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you've done it multiple times now, and so it's like, yeah. But
like the biggest stuff is on the table for me.
Does that ruin the magic a little bit?
Does that ruin the magic?
Yeah, and the fact that it's real.
No, I'm like hyper grateful, dude. I'm like, wow, this is awesome. This is crazy.
Okay, that's good. That's good.
And like, you know, and stuff was on the table after Castlevania, right?
Mm-hmm.
Then I felt like a kid in the candy store. I'm like, wait, all of the, what the, like, how do I even pick? Like at that point, how do you pick?
Mm-hmm.
Right? Yeah, it's like, I'm trying to think of an analogy, and I'm just going to think of a stupid one, so I'm not going to. But yeah, it's like at that point, how do you pick, right? So then I go, okay, well, the next one I want to do was Captain Laserhawk.
So why'd you pick Captain Laserhawk as the next one?
Because I didn't want to adapt one thing.
Mm.
And I wanted to create a new universe.
Gotcha.
And I wanted to do like an Orwell, Aldous Huxley, William Gibson style dystopian story.
So is that something where it's like,
and I wanted to effectively remix a bunch of different characters, right? Because with Castlevania, you're like, okay, we're like, Castlevania was done, like Castlevania was the game at the end of the day, right? I was like, okay, now's an opportunity to go the opposite direction. Not too dissimilar from what we did with, you know, Dirty Laundry, Punisher, Dirty Laundry, the fan film, where it was like Punisher, it was Thomas Jane playing the Punisher again. It's straight. This is the Punisher, right? And then we pivot on the other side of that to doing, okay, what's the opposite? Let's do something found footage, black and white, like a documentary about this guy Eddie B, who ends up becoming Venom, right? So, yeah, and this was just kind of creatively what I felt called to do at the end of the day. None of this was like an intellectually driven choice. It's just, I was super excited about this. And then Ubisoft was like, absolutely. And I'm like, wait, what?
So did you know somebody at Ubisoft, or you just like reach out and like, hey, here's an idea?
I was already working with them.
Okay.
I was already working with them. And that's, you know, it was documented. We'd announced some stuff, and then I handed them this.
What was it that made it, like, how did you get the absolutely, like, I'm sure you've answered this question a million times in interviews. Like, how did Ubisoft let you do so many kooky things with the characters? But like, how did Ubisoft let you do so many kooky things with the characters?
I literally just wrote a Bible.
Yeah.
And the Bible wasn't just the story. It was like the ethos of the story. And it was like,
so setting clear expectations right up front.
It was setting clear expectations, but it was also like a deconstruction of why I was doing this,
Mm-hmm.
right? Because in a way, you can look at Captain Laserhawk as this um, alternate timeline. I mean, it's not like, it's a fucking alternate timeline, right? It's set in a world where automation happened in the 1950s, and then America got sold out to a tech company. So it is an alternate timeline. It is alternate history. But another way of looking at it is this is what would have happened had the Templars won,
Mm-hmm.
right? Because
Yeah.
Assassin's Creed is effectively normally set in our world,
Mm-hmm.
right? It's like normally set in our world. It's like, oh, okay, the Abraham Lincoln, and then this happened.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, I'm like, so there's this group fighting this other group, and this has been going on forever. What happens if the Templars win? What does that look like? That's another way of looking at it. But I wanted just layers, it wasn't just one thing. So it becomes like a hard thing to describe when you're like, okay, yeah, and then Rayman's gonna have this he's gonna end up with Tommy guns, and he's actually the mouthpiece for the fascist dystopian agenda,
Yeah,
and you've got this board of directors.
2 episodes in, like, wait, is Rayman really like the propagandist for the CEOs? Like, that's
that was all in the pitch. It was just all in the pitch, and it was outlined, and but there was like a logic behind it.
Mm-hmm.
I think one of the things I've grown into, and maybe I always did this. I would love your opinion on this because you've known me forever. There's like a shock value to everything I do.
Mm-hmm.
Kind of like shocking. It's like, whoa, wait, what? Batman's what?
Yeah.
Superman did what? Like, or the Power Rangers are what? Like they're child soldiers? What? But it's not just for shock value. There's also like a thought process behind it, right?
Mm-hmm.
So there's some deeper theme or some deeper concept or construct that I'm trying to explore or understand. Yeah, Captain Laserhawk gave me the opportunity to do that.
So
it for me, it wasn't just, hey, I get all this Ubisoft intellectual property. It wasn't just that, but it was also this universe, this story, this construct, this exploration of
like
chaos versus order. Pardon?
And meta narrative too.
And then the IP adds the meta narrative.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
right.
Makes sense. Yeah,
the IP adds the meta narrative because it loses the impact if the chief propaganda officer is some original character.
Right.
Not just some, but an original character, right? Mm-hmm. So the other comp I threw out a lot was Who Framed Roger Rabbit. That was an original universe, but you see Mickey Mouse there, you see Bugs Bunny there. They're like these beloved characters are populating this universe.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, I like that because I think it also, it pulls up this concept of like your relationship with fictional beings, and like, who's to say you can't just have any story be a story with these fictional characters, right? Because like we all try to pretend that like, well, if you kill Batman, he's dead. It's like, well, not really, So,
or what is Batman? I mean, he's like, the character's been reinvented every decade or so.
Which goes back to our question of should Batman be owned by a company anymore too? If he's just a representation of evil man, or not evil man, but like dark justice man.
Yeah.
So, yeah. So when you approach Ubisoft, I'm assuming you sit down with some higher ups in a meeting and you're like, here's the idea, here's the concept, and you're just upfront with it right off the bat. And
it was all in the pitch Bible, dude. The whole thing was in the pitch Bible.
And they're just like, all right, yeah, let's go.
Yeah. So
that's pretty cool.
Ubisoft's owned and controlled by 6 brothers.
6 brothers, really?
Yeah. So it's an interesting company, and I really can't stress how much I loved working with the folks at Ubisoft.
I mean, we worked with them a bunch on stuff in the past. Yeah.
We did the Assassin's Creed.
We did like a 40-minute long Division like narrative thing.
Yes.
Yeah. We did a whole bunch.
Yeah.
Like they were letting us do that. They were letting us do effectively official fan films and funding them long before anybody else was.
So Ubisoft is like ahead of the curve with that kind of thing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. That's pretty crazy. Okay, so right before I asked you about this video game stuff, You said your real dream is rebuilding Hollywood.
Yeah, because I feel like, I was in an industry
Mm-hmm.
that operated by some rules, and not everyone agreed with those rules, but those were the rules.
Mm-hmm.
And those had been the rules since long before I was fucking born or you were born. And then all of a sudden tech came in. It's the Apple thing where we're talking about earlier,
Mm-hmm.
right? There's only Apple. There are no stars.
Right.
You're not going to know who made this device.
It's a collective.
It's a collective. It's Apple. You're all replaceable. You're all cogs in a machine. And that ethos, among many other ethoses that work for other businesses, do not work for entertainment,
Mm-hmm.
penetrated my industry. Case in point, by getting rid of stars, the only stars left are stars from the 90s.
Right.
Right? Like,
yes.
Nick Cage is a bigger deal today than he was in 1997.
Right.
Right? Will Smith can do and just have chaos happening in his personal life. Shit that would have made him like a direct-to-radio name in 1997. And he's still Will fucking Smith because there is no one else to
Right.
replace him, right? Because now all of a sudden the guys in the 90s are like
They're
the last ones standing.
Because they're the only ones that are hit, they were broadcast to everybody on major networks when there was no other channels. And so it's the only thing that
the machine from back in the day got behind them. So
right.
there was lots of money spent making sure that you know who Brad Pitt is, that you know who Tom Cruise is, that you know who Bruce Willis is, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah. So it's like the apparatus.
But can you even make stars anymore?
Yeah, for sure.
Even with such a fractured audience base and, distribution?
There's always been fractured audiences. There's always been things to distract you. But when I entered the business and I was in the fucking, so like 2008, 2009 was when I started, and things really picked up 4 years later, but Hollywood was culturally dominant.
Mm-hmm.
The movie studios were culturally dominant. And that wasn't by luck. That didn't just happen. That was by design.
Mm-hmm.
And things have happened over the last, decade plus that have hurt that. And we can get into what those things are. We've been rocked by scandals. So the perception of the illusion of glamour is gone.
Mm-hmm.
That's one example of it. I can just like rattle off 30 examples of things that have hurt us. I'm saying us because I'm like, now as it's slipping away, I'm all of a sudden like, whoa. Because I've had a foot in the YouTube thing and in this online thing and the Hollywood thing, but now I'm like, no, like that's where I got my start. Like that's like I want that back.
Mm-hmm.
And part of it's like selfishness, right? Because I like used to get treated like really well when I went out. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I was like treated really well. And now we're all content creators.
It is weird seeing movie posters effectively just another thumbnail on the row of thumbnails.
Yeah.
Which is scary because
it's like you're an icon within an app.
Yeah. It's like, how do you stand out now? Can you stand out now?
You can stand out now. You can. But it's, again, investing in stars. Because here's how I look at it. The business people fucked up. The business people lost. They just fucked up and they lost. And, you can blame McKinsey, you can blame the banks, you can blame Wall Street, you can blame COVID and the people getting drunk on the streaming wars, overspending, all you can blame. And there's a lot of blame to go around. But at the end of the day, the business people were driving the ship. They had a vision for what Hollywood was going to be, which was content all day long. We're going to drown you in content. And like, that's just not how people behave, right? This isn't fucking Wall-E, dude. This is not Wall-E. Like, your vision for global dominance was Wall-E. Like, what the fuck?
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? So you do it through stars, right? Like, I'm trying to give you a concrete example to illustrate what I'm saying. But yeah, I mean, Hollywood was built off the back of stardom. Like, yeah, but yeah, Hollywood was built off the back of stardom.
Yeah,
And look,
definitely.
maybe the stars aren't famous faces anymore,
Mhm. So
right? But like James Cameron's a star,
yeah,
right? Like, there's like, what the
Chris
fuck?
Nolan.
Chris Nolan's a star. Guillermo
Yeah.
del Toro's a star, right?
So there's
They're not content creators,
so
or
I
maybe
mean,
they are. I don't know.
there's
Maybe
brand
I'm old
strength.
fashioned. What?
There's brand strength in the artist, so to speak. You know, when you know you're
I
going to see
feel like
Quentin
that's
Tarantino.
you can distill it down into business terms by saying there's, they have brand equity with the audience.
Mhm.
Fine, they do. But there's also an innate like talent there,
right.
right?
So
Like, there's
so
an innate talent there.
with the when you say the business people lost, are you effectively saying that like they're overproduced? There's too much content.
I'm saying the business people fucked up. They had a vision for where to guide the ship,
Mm-hmm.
and they 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 lost in the when I say they lost, I mean they had a vision for where to guide the ship, and they were guiding the ship in that direction.
Mm-hmm.
That's just off a cliff. That direction is off a fucking cliff.
Mm-hmm.
And the cliff has been all the things we've been talking about on this podcast, right? People not really watching, people not caring, Hollywood no longer being this like dominant cultural fucking force in the culture, art becoming content.
Mm-hmm.
So much content that it devalues the content and then devalues the artist.
I'm gonna draw a parallel to video games here, because a lot of video games I feel like are kind of doing the same thing, where they get you to keep playing a video game, not
Mhm.
because it's fun and you like it, but because they're basically employing psychological tricks.
Yes.
A little trickle of updates here,
Absolutely.
some things you have to do here, a little grind here, you get
Yep.
your reward, etc. And you know, I, s- I I've been playing Call of Duty a bunch this year, and on one hand the game's super fun, but on the other hand it's like I'm playing Call of Duty still. Like, I was playing that game in college. Why why is it still Call of Duty? Why is there not a new video game out? And it's like, well, it's because it's the same game with all these little
It's the
bits and
business
bobs
people.
added to it to
It's the business
keep you hooked
people
in. Yeah.
doing that.
Yeah. So
Right?
you're not inventing new games. You're not coming out. You're just reskinning the same game and adding your little
Because
prize
going, hey,
boxes.
we're gonna find the next 10 James Camerons and we're gonna develop them. We're gonna cultivate them.
That's very
And
hard.
that's not. I don't think that's hard. I'd actually
Really?
disagree. I
You don't think that's hard?
I don't think that's hard.
I-
I think when someone has talent, it's kind of obvious. And
Yeah.
how to develop the talent, I know how. I know I can do that. I can do that. I know how to do that. Can give someone a blueprint and do that. And I would argue you know how to do that because you actually do that here at Corridor Digital.
I think, to me, the hard part is creating the environment around with which you can do that and justify it and make it happen.
Okay, but if you are running the business apparatus that is designed to find them and cultivate them, you will do that. Like the Hollywood studios back in the day, that's literally what they did,
Mhm.
right? They had a bunch of talent, they identified the stars, and then they said, okay, we are going to elevate you to a fucking level where the general public is going to be salivating over you, but don't let it get to your head. Like,
Mhm.
that's what they fucking did, right? But the problem is that is hard to model out. So instead, they take the approach of franchisability.
Mhm.
It's the MCU thing. They take the MCU approach. Well, no, we don't need stars. We can have brands. The brand's going to be the star, right?
Mhm. Intellectual property.
People are going to show up. It's honestly, it's the Haim Saban Power Rangers thing, right? No
Mhm.
one cares about you. They care about the Power Ranger helmet.
Right.
And we're going to keep recycling the helmet with different faces.
Mhm.
But people will care about Power Rangers, and they'll care about they'll care about the logo, not the people who play the characters. And that is a business philosophy. It is and look, that works for some people. It works for some consumers. It works on some consumers.
Mhm.
Like you're saying, Call of Duty, right? They're releasing a Call of Duty every year, or
Mhm.
two every year, or every fucking
Yeah, I mean, effectively, it's just one machine that's effectively a live service game, a machine that's constantly updated with stuff in
right.
it.
But what we're seeing now is that doesn't work because the audience wisens up to it in real time.
Yeah, or at least you can't. At least in the video game space, you can't start a new one, so to speak. It's like, well, let me just spin up my new first-person shooter and implement all this stuff. And it's like, well, no, it's not Call of Duty anymore.
Yeah.
But
so yeah, I mean, games and movies have gone through the same thing. So if you look at movies, they used to program for America, right? You'd have a screwball comedy, then you'd have a gangster movie, then you'd have a family movie, you'd have a musical. You had all these types of movies, all these genres, because the people that ran the movie studios went, we want to program for everyone. You'll have a few options every weekend, and we'll program for everybody. Well, now people don't go to the movie every weekend, fine, but also most of your options are $200 million IP driven. It's Wall-E.
Yeah.
It's literally Wall-E, dude. Honestly, I feel like the business people fucking sat down and watched Wall-E and went, huh, we should bring this, this is great. But it's Wall-E. It's like, hey, we're going to do Indiana Jones 12 and we're going to do Star Wars
every year, just
the
like
serial.
Call of Duty. Yeah.
Right. Exactly. And it's that. But, where does that come from? Because, dude, up until recently, artists, movie people, the fucking executives, they hated sequels. No one wanted to do sequels. I mean, you remember that, right?
Yeah.
Sequels were awful because no one wanted to do them.
Yeah.
It like literally doing a sequel was a kiss of death. Back in the day. I'm saying back in the day. Right? We didn't do sequels. Hollywood didn't do sequels.
You can expect to make half the revenue and half the
The audience didn't want to see it. They're like, I've seen this already. And look, and a lot of times those sequels were bad, right? You had some examples that were
you had Terminator 2 and Empire Strikes Back, and occasionally a sequel would pop. But yeah, you're right.
Yeah, I mean, look, but then Terminator 2, you could argue, is really just sure, there's the canon of it in their canon, but Terminator 2 was just a remake of Terminator 1.
Right, and Terminator 3 would be the true sequel.
Right, and Terminator 1 was a low-budget horror indie movie, and Terminator 2 was, now Cameron has some clout, so he's like, okay, I want to remake my old movie, but just call it Terminator 2.
Yeah.
With,
knocked
more resources. Yeah. He knocked that fucking thing out of the park, right? Because he's James Cameron.
Yeah.
But they also developed James Cameron. Right? They went, this guy has an interesting voice. Well, let's develop him.
Let's pair him up with producers and actors and artists and
Yeah. And there was systems in place to guide people's careers. Now, I've studied this stuff because I'm not from this country. So going to Hollywood was like this impossible thing. I'm like, whoa, what is Hollywood? This is crazy, right? And you hear people rapping about Hollywood and their songs about Hollywood. I'm like, I want to know what the fuck this is, right? So I studied the history of Hollywood and the different iterations of it and the different incarnations. And I was saying that as a preamble to a point I'm about to make, but I forgot why I was saying that. But I studied Hollywood, and it's just the point. The lack of career development or the career guidance institutionally is shocking.
So you don't have another generation coming in to pick it up.
I mean, dude, I think you're a talented filmmaker, right? And again, we're the same age. And I don't view myself as on a pedestal over you. So it's not that. Obviously, we're friends too. But when we first met and you were like, hey, I want to do movies, right? I sat down with you and I was like, hey, this is the ways you can do it. This is how you can develop your career if this is the thing you want to go. I did that, right?
Yeah.
Did anyone else do that for you?
Not really.
Okay. But you had agents courting you. You had managers courting you. Where the fuck were they?
Yeah.
Right. Why is it that you're a talented dude why is it that the only person that's giving you advice on how to navigate the apparatus that governs what gets made and how to have a role within it, why is it that the only person giving you advice is someone your own age? That's a flaw in the system. That's a flaw in the system, right?
Yeah.
Where's the elder going, you, you know? And I can look back at that era now and go clearly, like, and like a lot of the names are like signed on that wall, right? Like, yeah, there were talented filmmakers that emerged from YouTube.
Yeah, 100%.
Who stayed on YouTube because the machine didn't show up. And when the machine showed up, it wasn't to cultivate you. It was like to have you fucking shoot an infomercial for Dwayne Johnson.
Yeah. Well, yeah. I mean, like, back in that journey, like, you know, like you said, you know, I wanted to make a film, do an action film, do a sci-fi film, any of that kind of thing. You know, everybody has their strengths and their limitations, right? And like, I'm not a script writer. I can write, but it's like a slow and painful process. And I can take a script and think about how I'd shoot it, but just let me sit down and bang out a script on the typewriter. Like, that's hard for me to do. And I feel like if there's more of that apparatus you're talking about, it would be more of a thing to bring these people together and bring their talents together. But
there are so many screenwriters who are talented, who have like read their material and given them like feedback. And it's just my personal feedback, right? And then they'll like thank me. They'll be like, you're the first person to give me constructive criticism. I'm like, what the fuck, dude? You have like an agent and a manager and a fucking, like, how is no one reading your material, right? So, and again, it sounds like it feels like I'm complaining. And again, these things haven't affected me. They've actually helped me, right? The fact that most of the people in our industry have been asleep at the wheel has actually helped me because I know how to navigate on my own, right? So I'm like, all right, I'm going to get the rights there. I'm going to talk to this person. I'm going to get the. By the way, I've navigated all of this without an agent or a manager or a lawyer in some instances. Like I just go in, I do the deal myself.
Pardon? Yeah, just talk to the people.
I just talk to people. Because I'm like, dude, once I add layers, again, I have an agent now. It's great. He's great. And yeah, and I've been working with some managers and stuff. And I'm going to build out a team because but now I'm like clearly in a place where I can lead my team. So when I bring you onto my team, I'm like, not like I'm telling you what to do because it's not that, but like I have a clear vision as to where I want to be in 5 years and how I want to get there and how I want to get there. And I don't mean like I want to do this project and that project. I mean like with the kind of the ethos, the and how I want to show up, right? Like if like I don't want to work with shady people. That's what I mean.
Yeah.
Like so I'm not going to sacrifice my integrity.
Yeah.
That kind of thing, which should be a given, but I want to just voice that out loud because I said how I want to get there. I meant like, oh, I want to do this brand and then that. No, but again, you know, all of this complaining I'm doing on the behalf of all of my peers, Ubisoft actually did this for me.
How so?
There's a gentleman named Hugo Revon in Ubisoft motion picture, film and television, right? He randomly called me up. He got my number. He called me up and he said, hey, we love your stuff. Would you like to work with us? And I'm like, yeah. So he offered me a property. He said, okay, so, you know, we have a deal here to do something with this property. Do you want to work with us? I'm like, yeah, sure. Great. That sounds great. They brought me into the fold, right? And when I first started working with them, it wasn't clear in what context I would be working with them, right? Because is it like, am I a consultant? Am I a producer? Am I someone to help them package their IP to shop it to networks, right? Like, because it could have gone all these different ways, right? And the thing is, they never boxed me in. Right? Because I could have very easily been the guy that was like, okay, so this is how we get this IP made and we do that. And I worked with this writer on this movie. Would bring him in and like basically put packages together and taking them out. And that is a road, and nothing against that road, but that is a road I could have taken, right? But then I'm like, no, I actually feel my highest fucking excitement is to do Captain Laserhawk. But that's to me career development. It's giving people options. It's working with them. So yeah, Hugo brought me into the family. And there's a lovely executive at Ubisoft named Helene. Helene has been with Ubisoft for a while, and just super lovely, just super supportive. And yeah, I had the same conversation with Helene. Right? It's like, what do you want to do? Here are some options, and it evolved into me creating this new brand for them. It literally evolved organically, but and then as I was even doing it and pitching it, and as I was pitching it to the different networks, obviously Netflix ended up winning the bidding for it. But Gerard, who's one of the brothers, he came with I'm butchering the fucking story. I'm sorry. But Gerard came with me and Helene and Hugo to every pitch meeting. And Gerard early on, again, Gerard is the head of Ubisoft Film and TV, and he's one of the brothers that owns Ubisoft, or controls it rather. So he early on was like, he read the Bible and he said, "I love this. We want you to make this. We're going to make this with you, and we're going to clear the path for you to make this." Right? So sign off right from the top.
Yeah.
He came to every pitch meeting because, again, like you're there talking to fucking insert blank guy that owns a network who's like, I'm basically telling them like, I'm going to have Mickey Mouse doing drugs. And they're like, there's no fucking way, dude. And then they're like, and he's like, and Gerard was like, no. This is our characters, but this is Bootleg Universe. He literally kept saying that. This is our characters, but this is Bootleg Universe. That's one example of a plethora of examples of how I was just supported through this process. And I don't mean like support as like, oh, everything I said was like they said yes to. That's not support. Support is also pushback. Support is also giving you alternate ideas. Support is also Hugo calling me up and saying, hey, dude, you have to meet these folks at Bobby Pills, who ended up being our animation studio. They are fucking great, and they are your people. And I had like one phone call with them. I'm like, yeah, these people are awesome. But they found the perfect collaborators for me. Also, for them, but for me. Right? Because it would be so easy to be like, okay, here's this animation studio we've worked with before. They've done the Rabbids cartoons. You have to use them. Right? Or, hey, we have this company that we've invested in. You got to use them. But no, they like literally went, how do we support this vision you have?
Right? Yeah, that's not a frequent occurrence. That's a rare thing to have somebody like let's do this and let's make it good.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. But that's the energy that is going to fucking bring Hollywood back from the fucking ashes.
Right.
That energy. Right. Yeah. It's going to take executives to fucking show up. Show up and do your fucking job. It's going to take agents to show up and be like, look, you don't need to represent fucking 2,000 people on your fucking roster. Right. Find the 20 you believe in and show up.
Yeah. And work for them.
And fucking show up.
Yeah.
It's going to take lawyers to not take 6 months to close a deal that should take an hour. Right?
Yeah.
The apparatus that is Hollywood is so bloated and broken from this shit that, and again, none of this affects me. This all benefits me, right? Because I'll go in and I'll close my own deal.
Yeah.
I'm like,
you've done it before, so you know what to do.
I know what to do. I have all the templates. I know. I've like studied this shit.
Yeah.
But Yeah, like it's going to take, sorry. So our business is bloated, right?
Mm-hmm.
And there's going to be mass layoffs. There already are mass layoffs.
Yeah.
There are going to be more. And it's kind of like Survivor or like a weird reality show or whatever. But like the people that are left standing, it's then, and I hope I'm one of them, by the way. I'm not assuming. I don't want to assume. Like I may be on the fucking life raft, right? Like working for Nico, getting him coffee. But the people that are left, it's then on them to fucking acknowledge that the system is broken, that the machine has been tarnished and tainted and feathered, tarred and fucking feathered in front of the whole world, and go, dude, how do we get it back to being a culturally dominant fucking machine?
Mm-hmm. Well, let me ask you perhaps a question that we can kind of use as a theme for our way out of this podcast. So we're talking about Hollywood and fixing Hollywood, but like, we talked about a lot when we first met about trying to just make it in the first place. Somebody who's wanting to make movies, narratives,
Mhm.
TV shows, doesn't really matter. But somebody who's not trying to do like, hey, I'm going to just vlog into the camera. Somebody who's like, hey, I want to write a script and I want to tell a story with my cinematography. How do they get started these days?
Honestly, you are the better resource for that.
Well, yeah, but I'm on the YouTube side. But you're in the actual like industry. How do you?
I would argue, because of everything that I'm saying, that I've been ranting and raving about like a fucking lunatic about how people need to show up and do their fucking jobs
Mm-hmm.
in the way that Ubisoft did.
Yeah.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Because again, there's the, like, it's funny because people send me like memes online where there was this like there's like this really funny like chain where someone was like, how the fuck did this show get greenlit? And then the response was, it's Adi Shankar. He does this and he's now too powerful to be stopped. Like they act like I'm this dark lord that's running around and like it was so funny. Someone sent this to me and I'm like, I'm gonna frame this. This is hilarious. I'm like fucking Sauron. Like, but this is what he does and he's now too powerful to stop, right? But that's not true. Like it took everybody at Ubisoft to show up. It took everyone at Bobby Pills to show up, and it took all of our executives at Netflix to show up.
Mm-hmm.
And this is why I'm actually in animation, dude. It's not because I love animation. Don't get me wrong, I love animation, but my executives that I work with at Netflix, I love them. I literally love them.
Mm-hmm.
If Netflix were to cut them tomorrow, I would hire them. I would literally hire them tomorrow.
Yeah.
And the only reason I'm not hiring them right now is because I'm like, okay, well, I work with you at Netflix and I like, but
so the people matter.
The people are
100%.
everything.
I mean, yeah,
the logo is
obvious.
The logo means fuck all.
Yeah. So if somebody's starting out, if somebody's trying to get into it,
so
show up, meet people, people matter.
No, but sorry, the thing I'm ranting and raving about is because of how the last 7 to whatever X number of years have gone. You're saying, oh well, I'm in the YouTube space and you're in the real space. I would argue there's no separation right now.
Yeah,
there's no separation. A hit is a hit. A hit is a hit.
Yeah, it's right? All apps in a row on your screen.
A hit is a fucking hit, dude. So if you're Mr. Beast making a video that is effectively like a CBS game show. I don't want to be. I don't mean to be reductive, and I'm not trying to be like. But
I mean, it is. It's a game show. Yeah.
He's making CBS game shows, and he's doing it. He's a production company that does that. That's fucking great. How is that product any different from the reality shows that are being produced by the real?
It's not.
It's
just
not.
Yeah, it's just another video on the internet.
Another video on the internet.
Which I've fallen into the habit of calling every single thing a video now.
Right.
It's like
because they are. They're all videos on the internet. Some are behind, different like Halo is a video on the internet. You have a Halo, Paramount Plus has a Halo. Everyone has Halo videos on the internet, right?
Yeah.
So, whatever. So I don't think there's a differentiation. And actually, I think the lack of differentiation is actually the problem.
Yeah.
That's the problem, right? And that's not getting solved overnight. So I don't know what the solution is or how, sorry, I do know what the solution is. I don't know how it'll manifest or if this, that'll come together.
Mm-hmm.
But for now, what you do and what I do is not different.
Just make stuff.
We just make stuff, right?
Yeah.
And I would argue that some of the stuff you make is more impactful. I'm not talking about views. Yeah, you get a lot of views, but I think the whole view economy is also kind of fucked up, right?
Yeah.
Because then you're basically saying, okay, well, pornography actually gets the most views. So the biggest influencers are, so
Yeah.
all these metrics are a little wackadoodle-doo. And also, let's be honest, a lot of the views on the internet are fake.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of the fucking follower counts on social media are bullshit.
Mm-hmm.
And I think there's going to be there's going to be a reckoning. It's already happened where brands are like investing lots of money because, it's like you get a lot more engagement, a lot more exposure from Instagram or Facebook than you do for buying a TV spot, only to find out, but none of these convert.
Right.
Are these real people or are these fucking bots?
Yeah.
And the answer is it's a little bit of both.
Yeah. It's like the emotional engagement is like what matters. Like, it's a little off topic here.
But your stuff.
Right.
It resonates. It just fucking resonates, right?
Mm-hmm.
I show people your videos to be like, hey, you want to see something cool? This is cool. Like as an example, one of the things that I loved about Hitchcock, I don't know if I loved this about Hitchcock, but it was an observation I made about Hitchcock because he was there when film was evolving so rapidly. So he would discover like a trick or a storytelling kind of thing, and then he would make a whole movie around it, right? So like Rear Window is a perfect example of this. You do the same thing. Like your top-down shooter video.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's like here's an idea. Oh, okay, what story does it unlock?
We can use a drone. How are we gonna use this drone to tell, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Like you and Freddie Wong, I think we're doing. Correct me if I'm wrong. I'm not well versed in internet history like I'm in Hollywood history, but you guys were doing FPS videos before
movies were doing it. Yeah.
Before movies were doing it.
There was
right?
that one scene in the original Doom movie that had first person shooter stuff. But yes, that was very janky compared to how we were doing it.
By the way, the SAG strike is now officially over.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I just got a text. It's
wow.
now officially over.
All right.
So the rebuilding of Hollywood begins tomorrow.
They heard this podcast and they're like, all right, we got to get this done, boys.
This guy is right. We fucked up. We are so sorry. Yeah, maybe we shouldn't have bet the farm on whatever the fuck we bet the farm on.
Yeah.
And look, I don't want to besmirch the business people, but I'm besmirching the fucking business people, right? My executive at Netflix are fucking great. My executives at Netflix are fucking great. Like, I was telling my friend will remain nameless, but he's a friend. I love him dearly, but he says things to me, and then I have to be like, bro, if I listened to what you just said, I would not be in a good place. But I was telling him like last year, I was working on Devil May Cry, and I'm like, God, like they just give me the best notes. They just give me the best notes, and I keep asking them for more notes. I'm like, can you give me more notes? Because
wow, that's a rarity to hear.
I want to keep getting notes. I'm like, keep giving me notes. Like, how much time do we have? Because I've worked on this script for a long fucking time, like a long fucking time. Because I wanted to get better and better and better and better. Me and Alex Larson, who my collaborator on Devil May Cry. And I just wanted more and more notes. And they kept giving me more notes. And they kept making the thing better. I was telling my friend that. And he's like, dude, you can't open the door to that, bro. Like, they'll take over your show. I'm like, no, they're not taking over the show, dude. They are here with me, producing the show with me, and working every day with me to make this thing awesome.
Right. Which is amazing when you can find people like that. So it's like you're supporting each other.
Yes, yes, and it's also on you as the fucking artist, or it's on me as the creator of the show to show up in a way that creates that environment.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So you can
Right? Because
collaborate.
if I bring a bunch of bullshit and I'm like, oh my god, it's my vision and they're trying to take it from me. It's like, no, right? Then it's going to create an adversarial relationship. Here I'm like recognizing that they're helping me.
Mm-hmm.
They're seeing things that I'm not seeing because I'm too deep in it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And but again, that's a thing that an agent or a manager needs to tell a young artist.
Mm-hmm.
Otherwise, there's so many artists, and some of them on the wall. I'm not going to name names. Maybe I could name names in a cough as a joke, to really besmirch Mike Diva's name out loud. But like, have not received any fucking guidance.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Mike is classic example of a guy received no guidance. I'm so glad he's now on SNL because I'm like, you are in a machine, and this is going to make you level up.
Yeah. He's leveled up immensely just from his 2 years being there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But again, that's an example of what I'm talking about, right? Because SNL is SNL because Lorne Michaels. There's one dude that kind of is I'm not advocating for like one dude to be in charge of everything. That's not what I'm saying, but I think you were going to illustrate my point better than I could.
I was just going to say, like, that's a guy that's building that machine and bringing people in, and like, Mike got brought in, but Lorne Michaels is also very old now, and there isn't a new Lorne Michaels.
No, because then it becomes,
because the machine hasn't progressed to its next generation, like you were saying.
Yes, totally. Yeah, it's it's great. You were asking me a question about do I feel like I've made it, not made it, like.
Yeah. Okay. Yes. So, all right, here we'll wrap up the podcast with this question. All right. So we talked about making video game movies and video game TV shows. We talked about how, it's been our vision. It had, like, as we were growing up, it wasn't really done right. And then finally, boom, you are, with Netflix making shows based on these games with the people that make the games. And, my question was, do you feel like you are finally doing what you want to do? Do you feel like you are finally getting to make these pieces that you had visions for getting into film?
I guess my follow-up question is, how is that different from what I've been doing? And that's actually a real question. Like, is Laserhawk something like fundamentally different than what I've been doing?
Here's the thing. So you make this question complicated because you made Gods and Secrets, which I feel like is a
Guardians of Justice.
Sorry. Guardians of Justice. Sorry. Old latent memories sitting in my brain.
Horrible memories. Nico, will you please give me some footage? also, I'm so fucked. Can you please shoot this opener for me on a shoestring budget?
I'll be right there, Eddie. Don't worry. So, you made Guardians of Justice, and to me, Guardians of Justice was this culmination of like your bootleg universe concept. I want to take these ideas, these things that inspired me and shaped my vision of entertainment and media. I want to be able to make it, and like you had to do it bootleg, and then now you don't have to do it bootleg. You're just doing it with the actual owners of the IPs. Does that feel like you're still in the bootleg universe? Is that what you want the bootleg universe to become? Have you reached this goal of being able to finally make the pieces that are, I guess, but you're right. You've already done it. You've already made pieces that touch upon and acknowledge these cultural influences in yourself.
But I'm also evolving every year as a human being and as a person, right? Like this year has been in a lot of ways the worst year of my life. I'm not going to get into that, but you know why. Just other than I think we could say I'm lucky to be alive. We'll just leave it at that. I'm lucky to be alive. But actually, through the adversity, though, that's kind of the gift. There's gift through. I've grown through this amazing adversity, and I've showed up. I've become a leveled up version of myself through this like crazy adversity that I've experienced and really had the privilege of experiencing.
Mhm.
Let's put it that way, right? Because what doesn't kill you makes you fucking stronger. Um, so
But,
here's sorry, go ahead.
well, like, so you take your Punisher short, for example. Like, there is a difference between the Punisher short and Captain Laserhawk now. Captain Laserhawk feels like such a deeper realization of this, foray into, like, what's influenced you and, like.
But it's also where I'm at now,
Mhm.
right? So it's not like I'm getting close. It's not like I wanted to do Captain Laserhawk in 2012 and no one let me.
Mhm.
The Punisher short, and again, Punisher short did that with Phil Joannou, who is taught me so much. He was one of my earliest mentors. Phil Joannou directed that short.
Hmm.
He was one of my earliest mentors. Thomas Jane obviously started. Tom ended up being a mentor to me, right? Because he called me up one day. He's like, "Hey pal, I think you should really focus on this YouTube thing." I'm like, "Okay, I'll do that." Yeah, yeah. I feel like it's you do that a little bit, and it'll unlock some doors along the way.
Hmm.
Like wise words from Thomas fucking Jane. And the guy's brilliant. He's brilliant. But it wasn't like when we were doing the Punisher short. What I actually wanted to be doing was a short about an Assassin's Creed frog,
Right, but
right?
if the
That
Punisher short could have been a Punisher series, then you could have just done it. Would you
no,
have? No.
no, that dude, that was literally on the table.
Hmm.
So Eric Barmack, who was an executive at Netflix, left a couple years ago. But he was an early executive at Netflix. Early. Like we're talking, they're just getting into making original content. He DM'd me after the Punisher short came out, and we had conversations. I had a conversation with Eric Barmack. He's like, "Hey, what are you doing with this? This is a series." TV networks were, hey, like, 'cause, I mean, again, Thomas Jane, he's a great actor. He's also a star.
Mhm.
He's a big fucking name.
Yeah.
And especially in TV, he was coming off of a show called Hung on HBO.
Hmm.
So HBO wanted to be in business with Tom. And Chad St. John, who ultimately wrote the script for that, was an in-demand writer.
Hmm.
So yeah, we had an opportunity to make that into a series.
Hmm.
We didn't,
Why not?
because then it cheapens it. Because what was cool about it was we would sit around, drink cans or not bottles of Mexican Coke. It's the Coke.
Yeah.
It's Mexican Coke. That's what it's
with
called.
sugar in it. Yeah, Mexican Coke. Yeah.
We'd sit there in my office, drink it. Tom would talk about working out. And then we came up with this thing. Then we made it. And we just made it. There was no contracts. It was all handshake deals. People just showed up. It was fun. It was how I imagined filmmaking should be. And it's probably kind of how it is for you.
Yeah, that's how I imagine
Right.
it should be too. And that's how I try
Yeah.
to keep it.
Right.
Because it's really
And-
easy to have it not.
Yeah.
I mean, it usually isn't that.
No. So it was a lot of fucking fun. And the only time suits showed up, and I mean like agents and shit, Tom mentioned like well after the fact, like we'd already made it, it was in post, it was done, it was like they were ready to drop it. And he mentioned it to his agent, and an army of agents. It felt like, in Captain Laserhawk episode 2, where you've got the tiger dudes in the suits.
Yeah.
And they're like, oh, it felt like that. They all like fucking piled in. They're all in my office. I had a conference room. They're like sitting there and they're watching it. And they're like, where did this come from? Again, they didn't understand digital filmmaking. This was back in this is 2012. So this was back in the,
Yeah.
is it for a TV network? Is it for a movie? Is this independent? They didn't know how to classify it. And they're in there and they're like, Tom, where did this come from? And then he just like points at me. He's like, yeah, this kid did it. And they're all like, all the suits look at me and I'm like, right. And then they leave and I'm like, Tom, I feel like such a fucking imposter, dude. Like I'm like literally, I was like literally just in college. Like I was literally just in college. And now I have like movies coming out, and I've got this. Like, what the fuck? And he's like, "Hey, pal, here's the secret. I feel like an imposter too." And then he goes to, and then Phil Joannou was in the room, and he's like, "Phil, you feel like an imposter?" And Phil was like, "Yeah, no, you always." And then they like explained to me that the imposter thing is like part of the creative spirit of like staying young.
Mhm.
It's like staying young, right? Because the suits that walked in that day, those agents, none of them had imposter syndrome.
Mhm. Yeah.
They also lacked self awareness, right? Um, but yeah, like it was. Sorry, I just turned that dark and I besmirched the suits. They were very, very nice. They were like, "This is great."
Look, it's what you sign up for when you put a suit on. Like
Right.
you're
And
gonna
then
be
they
the
left.
punching
And then they
bag.
left. And they all scurry out. And I'm like, "Whoa, what the fuck was that?" It was like a wave, right? And like one of the dudes was like Angelina Jolie's agent.
Hmm.
And he's like, and he like looks at me after, because Tom's like, "Oh, it was all him." And then I'm like, then he's like, "We need to get you in the room with Angelina." And I'm like, "Jolie? Like, what the fuck is happening?" Like, okay. Um, yeah, and then, yeah, a bunch of people, Amber Heard, and then I got I met Amber, and Amber Heard sent me a book. She was like, "You're really into science fiction. You should read this book that I think you should make.
Hmm.
I'm going to send you a copy." So then she mails me a copy with like a really lovely note. Um, Again, only nice things to say. This is about Amber Heard here. The book was The Handmaid's Tale.
Hmm.
She
Yeah.
literally sent me The Handmaid's Tale. She's like, "I think you should make this."
Well, that
And I
was
was
very prescient.
fucking right, dude. I should have listened to Amber Heard. But why did I talk about that? So we made the Punisher thing. That is what I wanted to do at that moment in time.
Mm-hmm. So you didn't necessarily want to make a Punisher series. You wanted to make your own Punisher thing, and that's all it needed
Got
to
it.
be.
Yes, that's what we were talking about. Yes. So, but then the moment it became, "Hey, let's make this into a series,"
Mm-hmm.
then it became the suits and the contracts and the lawyers and how are we going to do this and who's going to create the show and who's going to do the thing. And then Addy, how do you want to do this? And I'm like, here's what I want to actually do. I love Tom. I'm going to get way more enjoyment in my life by having Phil Joannou as my fucking mentor.
Mm-hmm.
And he's going to teach me all these things that I will have never learned in the film school that I never got to go to. Right. And I want to take this experience and have it be like a cherished memory
Hmm.
versus it being like molested by the fucking Hollywood like, deal making fuckers. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So yeah, I just made another one
Hmm.
with the Venom.
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, we're just doing another one.
Yep.
And
That's
it's
why I
gonna
met
be
you
different.
at the when we were at the Comic-Con panel.
Machinima, man.
Yep.
Machinima.
Machinima.
Fucking Machinima. Yeah. And and I'm like, no, I'm just gonna do another one. I'm gonna do another one. I'm gonna do another one. And I like, yeah, there's like a part of me that really is a business dude in a way. Because I
Mhm.
have that in me, right? I have that in me. Like I know the moves. You've called me before and I've told you what the business moves are,
Mhm.
right?
Yeah.
And I do this for friends of mine. They're like, "Hey, what are my next moves?" And I'm like, "You do this, you do that, you do this, you do that." I cannot do this myself
Mm-hmm.
because the part of me that knows the chess moves is in conflict with the part of me that wants to fucking do the opposite of what I'm supposed to do.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, the business move would have been to do a Punisher TV, not a Punisher, a Dirty Laundry TV series,
Mm.
right? And yeah, like would it have been would Marvel have, who fucking cares? Maybe, I don't know. Like I know the Marvel people watched it
Mm-hmm.
because I was in a theater with Kevin Feige as he was fucking watching it. You know what I mean? This is a
Yeah.
true story. And Favreau.
Hmm.
Like I'm sitting in a theater with Feige and Favreau, sitting next to Tom here, Perlman's there, Phil's there, and I'm like, Feige's there. Oh, they're playing it. It was in North Hollywood. It's a
Mm.
whole other story. I don't want to get into that, but like, no, it didn't need to be anything more than what it was. And in a way, does this make sense or am I a fucking idiot?
that you made it for what it was and that was it? I mean, look, I asked, this all started with the question of like, if you want to make it to this day and age and you're just starting out, how do you get into it? And part of the reason I ask that is because, we talk about making movies here at Corridor, making shows, things like that. And we've made movies and we've made TV shows, but like they've never been like a Hollywood film. It's never been a theatrical film, right? And going into next year, I want to do more movies, right? We have things that we've written, and it's kind of at this thing where it's like, I just gotta shoot it and make it and let it be something that can live on the website or the YouTube channel. And anything beyond that is just like it starts to take it out of that realm of this is what I want to do, or this is what makes movies enjoyable and why I want to do them, and turns it too much into that business move, So it's interesting hearing about like why you mentioned
And
like
the business moves, and let me say, you just unlocked something for me. The business moves have a fucking problem in that the business moves have a very specific way that they move.
mhm,
And every culture's business moves are different, right? So
mhm.
when you're doing business with Japan, which I've done, right? I literally flew to Japan and did business. I don't need to toot my own horn here. Sorry, that's me being douchey. But I've done business in America, across America. By the way, it's different in different states.
Hmm,
In Korea and Japan and India, I and the business moves are different. The business etiquette is different. The pace of it is different.
mhm,
But the one unifying thing is because the business people have been so dominant, um, they expect the artist, unless the artist has leverage, which I would argue I have leverage,
mhm.
which is why I'm able to kind of bend the reality to my will a little bit. Not like the Dark Lord, like that Twitter guy said.
Just a little bit.
Just a little bit.
Dark Apprentice.
But the business people are trying to go, okay, this is how it has to be done.
You have to fight against that.
Um, I have to.
No, I'm just saying when they say if you're trying to do it a certain way and they say it has to be done this way, it ends up being something you have to fight against.
You don't have to fight against it.
You could just
But
do it
the
that
problem
way.
you have
Hmm.
is your way works for you now.
Right.
And your way has been battle tested to work for you.
Hmm.
That's not everyone's case. If you're a young filmmaker out there, that's not your situation. Listen to the business guy, right? Like, your situation is your way has been battle tested. So you got to get the business people to bend to you.
Hmm.
Otherwise, you're going to end up doing like another fucking infomercial for Dwayne The Rock Johnson.
Hmm. Yeah.
And they'll be like, Nico, you have to wait in this room for 25 minutes and Dwayne will come in and do that and then leave. I'm kidding. That was a joke. I don't.
It's cool. Sam was the one who had to wait in the room. I wasn't there. I
Okay,
didn't get to go.
Sam's a waiting in the room type anyway, so it's all good. But yeah, I mean, I guess that's what I've been telling you since we met, actually.
Well, yeah, I mean and I think that's just the reality that I've like tried to accept is that like if I'm gonna do it my way, I have to do it my way. Like you can't do it your way, then ask some business guy to come in
That doesn't
and, like,
mean
make
do it
work.
alone.
No, it doesn't mean do it alone, but it does limit the scope, right? If you're not gonna go
It
with the
limits the
apparatus.
partners you can have, which is both good and bad, right? Because if you're like, hey, it's got to be like this.
Mhm. It just means that like we have to very much focus on it being doable because
Right.
we're not quite in the in the full future yet where just any movie can be imagined in your head. Like you still have to shoot it, and that's gotten cheaper and easier, but still not at the point where it's just like I can just snap my fingers and
But you need support, and also like there's a point you made on remember where it was like a podcast or something, which I thought was brilliant, which is movies they spend a lot per minute, so you
Mhm.
have a big crew
Yeah,
that are just sitting around.
just sitting around if you have to figure something out.
Right. In the event you have to figure something else, so they're there as an insurance policy.
Hmm.
You don't need that for your YouTube stuff,
Right.
right? Because
Yeah.
you're not burning hundreds of thousands a minute.
Yeah. It's like if I have a project that needs us to be able to sit around on the set and like figure something out, it's like, well, then don't build your production in a way that makes that cost prohibitive.
Exactly.
Build it so you can actually do that and take
Yeah.
your time.
should we wrap it up there?
Yeah, let's do it.
Should we? I can keep fucking going. I love talking to you. This could be
No.
like a Andrew Tate style of we're about the cigar. I'm kidding.
No, we should wrap it up.
Yeah.
We're at the end here, but
We are. Yeah.
yeah, it's just
So I will wrap it up by saying it's been really great having you as a friend.
oh, well, that's what a great note to end on. It's been great having you as a friend too. But I mean, since the audience, isn't sitting here right between us to expand it, it's been cool talking again because we've been on this journey as like two guys making it into the industry from kind of two different angles, but yet from the same point of view in many ways.
Yeah.
And I always love getting together and sitting down with you and talking in a podcast. I mean, we'll have conversations like this outside of podcasts too, but when we get to do it in a podcast, like to hear the perspectives, the insights, the mental manipulations of like what's going on, it's always fascinating. And now we're sitting down and you're somebody who's had, multiple series under your belt. You've worked with some amazing people and some amazing teams. And to hear you still talk about like, I don't know, what's going to happen next. And it's a big question mark in some ways, and in other ways it isn't. It's perhaps, what am I trying to say? It's perhaps reassuring in its uncertaintiness to know that everybody has imposter syndrome makes you feel less like an imposter,
If you don't have imposter syndrome, you're like high.
Yeah.
Like you're kind of full of it, right?
Yeah.
Because
there's always something to learn. You're always going to be wrong.
You got to learn.
Yeah.
It's kind of like where preparation meets opportunity. It's like kind of that in between zone between confidence and fear.
Yeah.
It's embracing the discomfort. It's knowing that being confident in what you know, but being open to having it be challenged. I just feel like that's ultimately like art is truth. And that is the truth of the human experience. We're always evolving. So if you're not sitting in that, you're going to make bullshit, right? You're going to make bullshit because then you're fundamentally existing in a framework that you are ideologically tied to through propaganda or your own brand of psyoping. But that made no fucking sense.
No, it makes sense.
It doesn't make sense.
Look,
yeah.
If you want to have impact, you need to investigate things that matter to people from an emotional life experience like point of view, and that's always changing, and the way you do that's always changing. So if you don't change, if you're not evolving, then you're just stuck doing the same thing over and over from that emotional truth point of view. You're not offering anything new. But change is scary. Change requires you to do new things, which means you're not going to be an expert, which means that imposter syndrome kicks in again. So yeah, putting yourself in situations where you feel perhaps a little bit inadequately prepared is a sign that you are actually doing something new.
Yeah. It's like growing.
It's like growing. Yeah. All right. That's it. So long, everybody. Thanks for listening / tuning in. And Andy, thanks so much for joining us. Go check out Captain Laserhawk.
Captain Laserhawk, a Blood Dragon remix. It's on Netflix right now. This podcast didn't sell you on it. I'm going to try to sell you on it right now. It's 3 different things. So one is it's all of your favorite Ubisoft intellectual properties: Assassin's Creed, Far Cry, Splinter Cell, Rayman and the Raving Rabbids, The Crew, etc., all remixed and reinterpreted and reimagined. Then second part of the sales pitch is then they're put into this dystopian, fascist, satirical state called Eden, which is a nod, an homage, an ode, a deconstruction of George Orwell or Neuromancer or Aldous Huxley. Finally, it's a love story. Yeah.
There's nothing else quite like it.
There's nothing else quite like it. Yeah.
It's very unique.
Yeah, and it's it's set in a world. But this may help kind of the viewers get it. It's set in a world where, and I'll give you the background of the world. So, and we don't do like the we don't do the thing where we're like hyper fixated on like lore. So we just put you right into it, but here's the lore. In this world, America develops automation in the 1950s. It's not automation as we know it today. It's automation. It's like Iron Giant style automation.
Mhm.
And unemployment just skyrockets. So the company, the biggest tech company of the time called Eden, introduces universal basic income. And then people are like, whoa, what the fuck? This is awesome. Yay. And everything's great. And then Eden goes, okay, well, everyone gets this many credits, but if you spend it in Eden stores, they're worth double.
Mhm.
And everyone's like, whoa, that's awesome. So overnight, Eden becomes the economy. Overnight, America stops being called America and they just call it Eden. And then they start social control. They're like, look, if you do X, Y, and Z, you get extra credits. By the way, if you don't watch this TV show, you get docked credits. And then, there's no labor force. So they genetically engineer a hybrid race, a race of hybrids, animal, human hybrids to be the labor force for specific tasks. Yeah. And then you find out that, hey, actually automation wasn't fully real. Like they kind of had it, but then they were also using putting prisoners in these VR prisons to be Uber drivers effectively. Like, so
Yeah.
that's the sales pitch.
It's pretty cool. It's got a lot of really interesting, cool ideas. So
yes.
yeah. All right. Heck yeah.
I love you, dude.
I love you too.
Like, we're gonna look back when we're very old, and this is gonna be very meaningful.
Each one is.
Not this podcast. I mean this relationship.
Oh yes. I mean this podcast too. Why not?
This podcast too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sweet, man. Well, so long, everybody.